The Golden Hour Birth Podcast, a podcast about real birth stories and creating connections through our shared experiences.
Childbirth isn't just about the child. It's about the person who gave birth, their lives, their wisdom, and their empowerment.
We're Liz
and Natalie,
the Golden Hour Birth Podcast, and we're here to laugh with you,
cry with you,
and hold space for you. Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your co-host, Liz.
And I'm your co-host, Natalie. And tonight, the trifecta joins in Liz's basement. We have our other sister-in-law, Maryann, here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So if you want to go ahead and tell us about, well, our listeners, because we already know who you are.
Oh, yeah.
About you and your fam.
Sure. I am married to Ben. He is the oldest Hackett. And we met in 2008. And when I was 22, he was 29, just turned 29. And we dated for a long time. We dated for 5 years. We lived together in our apartment for like 2 years in South City. We lived there for like 2 years together. And then we went to the Missouri Botanical Gardens to the Lantern Festival. And then we were walking in and some guy said, "Hey, like, do you guys have tickets?" And Ben immediately then I knew he had no tickets for the show. So then we walked back to the car and he was just sat there for a very long time. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, where are we going? Like, I don't understand this. And then he pulled out the ring and said, "Will you marry me?" And so, yeah.
High five to car proposal.
I mean, it's like, come on. And it's almost like, could you have just like gotten out of the car maybe and then got on your knee and then like that would have been like just as good.
Just take the locker room.
Exactly. Like, it's a nice night tonight, but no, I'm like, so yeah, that happened. And then we got married 8 months later. We were already together for a very long time. Like, I was not messing around. Like, we got married 8 months later. And then we were married, in March of 2013. And then we had Lucy in September of 2015.
So what was it like when you guys were like, let's try to have a baby? Find out you were pregnant.
Yeah, we just kind of like, I think I got off like birth control well before our wedding. Because I was like, I don't want to like have the time. I just, you know how you have these plans in your head where like you want to, I'm going to do this by this age and this age. And like, obviously it did not happen that way. I was 28, turning 28, getting married. And we had tried for a little while. It had been like a good, I was trying to think about this earlier. So we had tried for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I just kind of thought like, it'll happen. It'll happen like when it does. But like several pregnancy tests later and like, you're still not pregnant. But I never kind of like let that like get the best of me. I was just kind of like, we'll see what happens. And then, it was like, in March? No, I can't. Don't quote me on that. We were one night. Yep. I took a test and I was positive and I really couldn't believe it. Like, I was completely shocked. And then I made Ben leave and go get another pregnancy test. And then in the meantime, Natalie, your husband, Sam, was on the way over he was like our child at the time. And so he was on the way over to our apartment just to like, do dinner and a movie or whatever. And so I had taken the second test when he got back and it was positive again. And then we told him like right then, and we're like, don't tell anybody. You can't tell anyone in the world. Yes. So he held that in for a really long time.
Did he? Be a good secret keeper?
He didn't tell anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
He's a good.
Yeah. So yeah, that was crazy. So then we had our first appointment and that was just like you get to see it. It's just a feeling of just like, I can't believe it, And yeah. I remember being at work and I had some like breakthrough bleeding. It was more of like a brown. It was very, very early on. And it was like probably the 6, 7, 8 week mark. And I had like brown, like breakthrough bleeding. And I was at work, scared, terrified, had no idea what was happening, called my doctor. They had me in and it was fine. It turned out fine. I mean, she was healthy and she was good. And yeah, so that was really good. Went in and did my, the 12 week. It's hard to remember back now because she's 7.5 now. Yeah. So I was even trying to like play this back in my head too. But went in and did our ultrasound and everything. And she was great. And we found out, we did testing and we found out her sex at the 4-month mark, what you do. And I take that back, actually. We did not do testing with Lucy. I was thinking of George. We did not do testing. We did not find out with Lucy until the 20-week anatomy scan.
Yeah.
We did not do testing. We opted out. I was just like, whatever it is, it is. And we found out she was a girl and couldn't believe it because the Hackett's are like notorious. Like our family is notorious for boys. Like it's just up in that point, it's just been all boys. And so I had been put on like a pink shirt underneath another shirt, and I had a pink shirt on the other shirt. And I keep forgetting that you guys weren't there for this, which is so weird to even like.
We're learning about it.
Yes. And we went over to Jerry, our mother-in-law's house, and we were in the backyard, and we found out, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And so then I had been like, take off a shirt, like, "Oh my God, is that girl? Does that mean girl? I can't believe it." And then our mother-in-law screamed out, "No!" And I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" Like, yes, it really is a girl. And she was like, "I just don't know how to do girls. Like, I've only had boys before. Like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with a girl." And I'm like, well, I mean, we can't help it now. Like, this is like, this is what's happening, you know?
Can't go back any further.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So that was funny.
That sounds like Jerry.
It does sound like Jerry, yeah. And she's going to read this and be like, she's going to hear it. Well, you said it. Yeah. So that was great. I mean, moving through, I had a wonderful pregnancy. Like I was never nauseous. I gained 7 pounds. I lost weight during my pregnancy because I started at like a heavier weight than like I would have liked. And so I think I gained 7-ish, between 4 and 7. Yeah, the whole time. I felt fine. I never swelled. I never, like, I loved being pregnant. Like it was just a very positive experience for me. And I know not a lot of people can't really say that. Yeah. So I'm very fortunate, and I know that I am. So yeah, I loved it. It was great.
You guys in the middle of your
we were. It's terrible. I was 5.5 months, and we moved from our four family to our house that we have now. And so, yeah, that was a blast. I would never do that again. No. Like that. And you did, I think you were the same. You were like 5.5 months too, right? Like right around there. And it was awful. Like you couldn't really carry very heavy things, and you were stressed out. I was exhausted. Mm-hmm. So then when we got to the house, I remember like the first thing, I think I had Jason, Liz, your husband.
Yeah, you were like,
put up the bed.
Put up the bed first.
Yes. I was like, Jason, and he's like, okay, let me get it set up. And then he was so great about it. But I'm like, I need that bed and set up. Like, I need to take a nap. Like, this is just like crazy.
And it was like the dead of summer, right? Like
April-ish. Yeah. Okay. April-ish. Yeah. That was April, May. Yeah. It's really good times. But
that's not like the dead of summer, but.
Right.
Not summer.
It's getting a little toasty. I mean, not going to lie.
And then she was due like September 15th.
She was due. Yeah. So we were moving right along. I mean, I remember going into my doctor's office on the date before her due date. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm going to let you go a week after. That's as far as I'll let you go after. And I'm like, okay. It's the first time, like, whatever. Totally trust my doctor. And so that was a little bit like, okay, like it's like you think back and like you think of the movies and you're like, when's my water going to break? Like, this is what happens, right? Like, this is the
big moment.
I remember talking to like girlfriends at the time, and my one friend swore by eating pineapple, and I absolutely hate pineapple.
Me too.
But I was like, whatever. So I went and got a huge thing of pineapple, and I ate like the entire thing. And I was just like, gross, but okay, if it helps, whatever. But then I was also kind of like, she'll come when she comes, and just kind of like, I trust that, she'll come in her own time. Because if Lucy now, yeah.
Can't tell her.
No, you're not going to do. No, 100% no. Yeah. So then I remember going in, and it was the 21st, I guess. And it was a week after, and I was called in, and we got induced, which was, it was intense. I'm not going to lie. So it was a week after, and I was not effaced. I was not dilated. I wasn't anything after a week. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a very long process for the first birth. It was 22 hours, and it was 3 hours of pushing. So it was intense. It was intense to say the least. Yeah.
Did they like start you on the medication?
They started me on right when so I remember getting in there and just getting you prepped and everything like that. Started me on medication right away. And you do the peanut and you try everything you can to get ready. Yeah, she was pretty stubborn. But it kind of all moved 22 hours and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, that seems like a really long time. But like it moved relatively quickly. Looking back now, I'm like, okay, I can't believe that it was that long, because it's like you had things to distract you with and try to take a nap and do that kind of stuff. And that's easier said than done. I made it to 5 centimeters and that was good enough for me. I was ready for that epidural. My biggest fear was that I didn't want to feel anything. I totally, like, Liz, I don't know how you did it. Like, I just did not, I was good on it. Like, I was just kind of like, that was my plan. Like, I was just good. But I also didn't want to get it too soon to where I was going to feel. So I was like, I'm just going to kind of push it to like the point to where I can't do it anymore. So I was like 5 centimeters. And I remember I was like shaking like uncontrollably on the bed. And I just could not. And I was like, nope, get him in. But then you never know when they're doing like rounds. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, that's something that I didn't expect. I wasn't like,
yeah, they don't just come right when you,
hey,
like, I'm ready.
Ring a bell. Yeah. Are you waiting outside the door for me to tell you? Yeah. So they're like, okay, it's going to be a little bit. And I'm like, what? What do you mean?
Anesthesiologist, some hospitals, they're for the whole hospital.
Right.
Not just OB. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So that was very shocking to me. I had no idea. I was not prepared for that at all whatsoever. So, it didn't take a very long time, but I was nervous. I was very nervous about needle and being paralyzed and just very nervous about moving. I remember asking just so many times, like, okay, what if I move? What if I have a huge contraction and I move? And they're just like, well, you can't. Like, that basically,
okay,
sorry, but like, you have to be pretty still. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah. So that was fine. Everything turned out fine there. And I felt so much better after the epidural. And it just kind of progressed from there. I mean, slowly, very slowly. My nurse, Ben and I to this day, this was her first delivery, like by herself.
I just had that happen with Violet.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And she didn't tell us until after.
Same.
And so the whole time I'm like, she's a pro, man. She's probably done this like so many times. Like she was younger, but I was like, man, she was great. She was so like consoling and helpful and so sweet. And it's really stuck with us. And it was just very, I couldn't believe it afterwards. And she was like, that was my first like solo. And like, cause I remember it was kind of like a little bit of distraction outside, like right outside the room right there, or right before you when you come in. And it was like, I guess other patients needed other things. So they just couldn't have another nurse in there. Like it was literally just one, mainly the entire time with me and Ben, but what did Ben do? But, but she was amazing. And we will always have like a soft spot in our heart for her because she just was so, just very helpful. And just, especially for your first one, like you want that. You want somebody that's very like nurturing and just like constantly reassuring you, this is normal, this is okay.
Yeah.
Because you're scared to death.
It changes your perspective too.
Yes.
Like a good nurse.
Especially like having it the first round, like to where like traumatizing.
It's like a more seasoned nurse might have been like, yeah, you're okay, bye.
Get over it, I'll be back in a minute. Yeah.
Be like very attentive.
Yeah. Give me all the things. Give me all the praise. Give me all the attention. Tell me every little detail. Yeah, But yeah, that was great. So I pushed, and when it got time to push, and it was just Ben and I in the room. And I think we had come to that decision well before. And it was, my mom wanted to be in the room. That was what her mom was in the room for her. And I was like, I just think this time around, it's just going to be us. It's our first child. I just want it to be us. So pushing. And it was I could feel when I was having contractions, which was so good. This is not like my second, which I didn't, but the first, I felt everything. I would tell them when I was having a contraction. Like I didn't have to look at the monitor. Like I just knew it was just coming up and I can push, and it worked out great. My husband, he doesn't have the strongest of stomachs, apparently. So I was pushing, and then I remember the nurse saying like, oh, Daddy, you're going to be able to see the head, like coming up here soon. And I just look over at him and he is white. Like just white. And I'm like, are you okay? Like what's happening? He's just feeling very good. And you're not feeling good? I'm sorry. So he's like, sit down. I need to sit down. But don't worry. My mother-in-law was there. Our mother-in-law was there right outside the door. So I'm like in the midst of pushing, and she came in to bring Ben snacks and water and to check on him. And I'm pretty sure there was like a wet compress at some point. And again, I was in the middle of pushing, and I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like I just kind of like stared at him and glared at him like, are you kidding me right now? But he got it together.
Was your mom in the waiting room too?
Yes. And so it was actually, they were all standing at the door, which I found out later because the doctor would kind of come and go. And, or when he got there, he would like come and go, or the nurse would come out, and they were all standing at the door with their like hand and ear up to the door, trying to listen to every single detail. It's like, okay, that's a little extreme, you know?
Yeah. That would be hard to like tune that out.
Yeah.
For COVID babies.
Yeah. Where you couldn't.
There's no waiting room.
And my mom would like come and go. She was there like earlier when I first went into labor, when they first induced me, like she was there and then went home, and like I was like, they're like, it's going to be a while. So she left. But yeah, so Jer came in. She's going to love that I'm telling you when she hears this. Yeah. But she came in, fixed Ben up real good, and he was ready to power on because he really had he had a lot to do. Yeah. But then he ended up being okay. I'm like, are you going to be like, I want you to take pictures. I want you to like see. I want you to be able to see this because I feel like you're going to regret it if you don't see it and everything. And he did. He was fine. She came out screaming, and it was, again, like it was pretty seamless as far as nothing major happened. And she was there. Apparently the mom said outside the door, the first thing I said was, it's over. It's over. Because it was so long. But yeah, no, she was,
How
perfect.
big was she?
She was 8 pounds, 12 ounces. Yeah. And she was like 22.5 inches. Yeah. So and my kids are very, very big. I mean, they're just, they're very large for their age group, which we don't really know still why that is. But yeah, she came out. She was perfect. She had like stork bites on her eyelids. Yeah. And I remember my best friend came in, and she was actually the first one to hold her besides Ben and I. And so she came on like, don't ever tell my mom that, which you'll find out now. And I remember her asking about the stork bites, and the nurse saying, yeah, they'll be there pretty much forever, but they'll come and go. Like when she gets very upset or anything like that, like they'll just kind of fade. But then when she gets upset, they'll kind of get a little bit more inflamed. And I'm like, she has this like perfect little things though, like where it's basically like, when she gets older, like permanent like eyeshadow though, kind of, because they're like right on her eyelids. So it's just crazy. You can't
I don't think
tell unless you
that.
Yeah. She had them. It was much more pronounced when she was a baby. Yeah. But as she got older, they faded quite a bit. But she was perfect, and she was healthy, and that's all I cared about, obviously. And so, yeah, she was great. Sorry, like, hey, because it's been such a long time. So, yeah.
She was so cute. I mean, I met her at like a little over 1. Yeah. You met her.
I met her soon after that because Jason and I had just started dating. And he was like, oh, get a text. Oh, my brother had his baby. And I'm like, oh my God, can we go to the hospital? I love babies. I want to meet her. We'll go.
I think I'm pretty sure you met her like 3 weeks after, 2 weeks after, like at Jerry's house, and so teeny tiny at that point. She got, oh my gosh.
I remember seeing like a Christmas card on Sam's fridge when we started dating. I'm like, she is so like I need her. And then the first time I met you was at the New Year's Eve party, and you're like, you can pick her up if you want. I'm like, yeah, I am. I hold the babies.
Take her. You can take her right now if you want. Yeah.
Feel free. It's so fun to see the evolution of her.
You know? Oh, yes. 100%. It's crazy.
Like,
I mean, personality wise, or personality and physically, it's just like crazy. It's literally crazy. Like, I mean, you don't understand, like, when your parents tell you this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you're going through it, you're like, oh my God, like, she was just 2, she was just 3, and like, oh, she's going to be in 2nd grade. How did that happen?
How was going home?
So yeah, I remember we had so many visitors. Like it was a lot. In the recovery, I remember it being like rough. It was a very rough recovery for sure. I was exhausted, obviously, and it was just and I tore. So the stitches and the everything, and having people there. I remember my cousin and like a bunch of family coming up and like visiting and me being like, and she just kind of looked at me and she was like, do you want us to go? Yes, I'm sorry. Like, it's just too much. Like, this was just right after when they just got me into recovery. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I just need everyone to like head out. Yeah. And then your first shower. And you're just like, what just happened to me? Like, it's such a traumatic, it really is such a traumatic experience where you're like, I can't believe this just happened. Yeah. It's not real. Like, what? Yeah. And I remember Ben and I like getting ready to go. And I remember them handing you like the list, the infamous like list of like things that you should be doing. And this nurse at the time was just like rattling it off, like quickly thumbing through the pages. And I just kind of like, okay. And then we just kind of looked at each other after she left, like, I'm sorry, what? Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, when does she eat again? Like, what do we do? Like, it was just so overwhelming, you know? All right, get in the wheelchair, get in the car. Oh, let's get you have your car seat on. Great. Let's do this. And like, of course I was
so in.
I mean,
the
and
car
you're
seat,
just
you're
so nervous. I mean, driving home and I'm just like, you're going right to just the typical things that people talk about that you're like, I did all of them, all the things for sure. Yeah. We got her home and it was intense. I tried to breastfeed and my milk never fully came in. 2 days after I went back to my doctor and they checked to see if I had a retained placenta because I was like, my milk in, like, it was probably 2 or 3 days after we got home. Still not coming in. I'm not like really pumping much. Like, I mean, not much at all. And so I was pumping, supplementing, and then trying to breastfeed. I needed like a nipple guard, nipple shield. We have a family friend who is a lactation consultant. Yes. And so she came over and I called her and I was just like, can you help me with this? So she came over and she had like got me the nipple guard and everything. And it helped a little, but it was so much. It was the 3 things. And it was like, I was not sleeping 100%. Like I was sleeping like an hour. Like it was just absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that I still attribute to my postpartum anxiety that I ended up having, but because it was just it was a lot and I was very nervous and Ben was the same way. Like there wasn't like one parent that was very like chill and the other one. We were both the exact same. Like we were both like staring at her like constantly. Like if I was like napping, I would have like a parent come over and I would like have them like make sure they were awake while she was sleeping. So I could sleep like mentally, so I could sleep to know that like if something happened, it was just it was a lot. Yeah. So yeah, that was, that's kind of like how a lot of like my anxiety started. I'm sorry, I could just ramble like this forever. Like if you guys just want me to continue to just kind of keep rolling over. Okay. So I started I didn't really know what was going on with me, to be honest. Like I just kept feeling like this really like, kind of like this warmness and kind of like this tenseness in the back of my head. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this is. And then like every now and then I would get like dizzy. Ben went back to work, within days after we got home. So that was a lot. So I was like home all the time, just me. And I would never know what like this dizziness was. It was just very strange. And so that went on for a full year. Like I just didn't really, I felt like kind of off, but I couldn't describe it. I couldn't vocalize it. I could not say what it was. And then
Did you tell Ben about this?
Yeah. I would kind of say like, I just feel a little bit off, but nothing like, I just honestly thought it was it's because I'm tired and I'm a new mom. Maybe this is just how everyone feels. Like you just think like, oh, everybody does. This is what you're going through. You're a new parent. You have no idea, what this is. So just kind of brush it off. I mean, like there was nothing too intense about it to where I was like, oh, I need to go see a doctor. And then right before her first birthday party, I was walking through Home Depot. I had the cart and I was like wheeling her. And then our mother-in-law, Jerry, was there. And then Ben. And so we were going through, and all of a sudden, I mean, just everything caved in on me, and I had this massive panic attack. And at the time I didn't know it was a panic attack. So I remember just kind of like going over to like the lawn chair area and just sitting there and just like not being able to breathe and just hyperventilating and just, but luckily there was a lot of really nice customers and people around, and they kind of all like came around me and they called the paramedics and they're like, we're going to take you. Cause I mean, like, I have no idea what this is. Like, do you think it's anxiety? And I was like, no, because I experienced anxiety before.
Yeah.
I mean, never anything on this level, obviously. Go to the doctor or go to the emergency room, and they're just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, do you, again, with the anxiety questions, I'm like, no, I don't think this is it. I think I've experienced it. Like, they're like, okay, well, maybe it's like, maybe you're just like a little bit dizzy, you could be dehydrated. And I'm just like, so they ran every test and everything came back fine. And so I'm like, okay, I don't understand what's going on. And then the week after this, I was getting in to see a new doctor because I was like, at the time I didn't have, I think my general practitioner had like just retired or something like that. So I was getting in and I already had my appointment set that week and I couldn't get in any sooner. The anxiety had fully taken over my entire body. Like I couldn't walk like down the stairs. Like it had completely just, I was like tunnel vision, like no control over a lot of stuff, like very just, it really just disabled me. Like it was just completely full consuming. So I remember my dad came over and my dad had to drive me to my doctor, and I got there and I was just pretty hysterical. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, do I have MS? Like, I don't know what's wrong with, like, what is this? And he had me like walk up and down, I remember the hallway, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Like, and he's like, okay, walk in this line for me. And I was like crying and I could barely walk like in a line, in a straight line. And he was just like, okay, let's come back and talk about it. And he's like, well, what do you think that this is? And I'm like, I honestly don't know. Like, is it MS? Like, I have no idea what's going on with me. And he's like, it's anxiety. It's fully anxiety. And I was like, this is insane. Like, this is so intense. It's not what people describe. Do you know what I mean? It's not like what people are just like, oh, I'm anxious about this. Like, no, this is like full on, like very intense situation. And I immediately started me on Lexapro. And I was on that Xanax for a little bit before. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but like, yeah, Xanax for a little bit before, and then until the Lexapro really kicked in. But it was a struggle, and it's a struggle to this day. Like I still deal with the anxiety that started as my postpartum anxiety. I have mixed feelings on it. Like I feel very upset that I feel like it really kind of like hindered me from having like the full experiences that I feel like that I deserve to have. And I feel like that it just wasn't fair. Like I feel like that just really, and I was still, I mean, doing all the things, but not feeling like yourself. You don't, it's like I was a completely different person from before having a child to having a child. You're changed. You're forever changed, obviously. Yeah. But physically, mentally, I just felt like why is this happening? How is this happening? Why me? And like I said, we did everything that we always wanted to do, but it's always been there, and it's still always there, and it's a constant struggle, and I'm still struggling with it today. Yeah. And I think the biggest, it's helpful knowing that you're not the only person that deals with this, because at the time you're like, again, why me? Why is this happening? Like, this is so unfair. And you're just so like distraught about it. And don't get me wrong, I still have those moments where I'm like, well, this person seems perfectly fine. Like, why do they get to experience these things? And I just can't do it, or I have trouble doing this or that. But I'm fully confident that I can live with this new 7-year. Obviously, it's been like a little bit of while. It's been a while. Yeah. It has. And it's been medicine changes, different medications and different therapies. And yeah, I'm fully confident that I will get there. But I mean, and it takes a while. It takes a while to get the right prescription, and it takes a while to understand the type of anxiety you have, and like where it manifests and where your triggers are and all of these things. And yeah, so I'm confident that we'll get there eventually, but it's hard. I mean, it is hard.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like such like a great time period, but yeah, you were like going to doctor's appointments and couldn't even like go through a Home Depot without
Right.
completely like shutting down. Like it's hard. It's supposed to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like postpartum anxiety is such a real thing.
Hear or see on social media about all these people that are just having the time of their lives.
Oh my God.
Like, what, are you telling the whole story?
Right. I'm going to load up my 2-week-old baby and we're going to hit the gym and then we're going to have lunch together and we're going to do this. And I'm at home like staring at my kid as she sleeps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just not, it's not what you picture. And so in that sense, you're just kind of like, okay, but then you adjust. And we still, like I said, we've still done things. We took her to England with us when she was 18 months old. I mean, she's had a full life. I've had a full life with her. So.
Yeah.
But also to say that it's very challenging. I didn't expect it and I don't wish it on it. I mean, I think there's a lot of like shame around anxiety and there's a lot of shame around postpartum anxiety and like, let's not talk. Let's really, everybody needs to hear about it. And I really think, and honestly, I think it's not just women. It is also men too. I mean, like they experience it. Like my husband experienced it as well. I mean, he has anxiety as well. And it's very difficult. And I don't think it's something to be, I'm not ashamed of it. I don't mind. Like I will talk to anybody about it. I'll tell them. You just have to find a new way around it. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think like the hard part, like to hear or just sad is like, I'm supposed to be feeling like this. I'm a new mom. This is how I should be feeling. And you've said that too. Like I'm a new mom. This is just like what I should be feeling. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, is this normal? Like it was always just like, okay, I'm just a mom.
Yeah.
Like
this
this is just
normal.
This is just like, okay, they say it changes you. Like you try to listen to all the advice and then you're just like, okay, this is just like what it is now. And like, you don't realize it's something way deeper than that.
Yeah. You're not feeling like yourself, but you're like, I guess this is just how being a new mom is. And then you get screened for postpartum depression and they're like, are you crying all day? I'm like, oh yeah. Are you doing this? And you're like, no. And so like, I think postpartum anxiety completely goes under the radar.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's because it's not necessarily hitting you at the hospital because you're endorphins and you're just feeling like, oh, I'm so happy and like this just happened, but you're also like, wow, this was traumatic that I just went through this birth. Like there's so many emotions that it's really the 2 weeks after, the month after, the 3-6 months, like that's when you really need to like, when things need to be like delved in and just kind of really
get that 6-week appointment where you're still bleeding, having a baby. You're still not, your milk's all weird and wonky. Yeah. It's not a perfect screener for sure.
No,
it's not, they need to keep screening.
Correct. Oh, 1000%. Yeah. I would be a huge advocate for that. And then like, it's almost like tell me what's not what you don't consider to be the norm. And I'll tell you if I have those things,
How are you
right?
feeling? You're like, good.
I mean, I guess is this normal? Like you tell me, like, should I be feeling? I don't know.
I was looking back at hospital notes just like the other day and doctor wrote I had a postpartum depression screening of 4 when like normally like with Wes I had like 10s, like good 4 and she no question, no follow-up question. Now I'm just like 4's not good.
No,
I was struggling. I'm getting better, but
and then again, like it's the shame of it, and then when people ask you about it, and you're like, I'm just tired, and like you're not going to be like,
this is fucking miserable.
I stare at my child. I don't sleep.
I touch their bellies.
I'm finger in front of the nose, like all the things. We did all the things.
I had a sleep sack that had a pattern on it because it was easier to see his chest. But then, oh my God. And that's like, put that one on him tonight. Yeah. That one.
But that's like, and that's not, I don't consider, like, I get it. Like, completely understand that. And I think anybody who's a mother would understand, like, that's just like, these are the things that we don't like, because are we like, is this normal? Like, what is wrong with me? Am I like crazy? Like, what?
But
I don't think so. I mean, because like every single one of my mom friends like has had their own experiences too. And they're like, listen, and not everybody has had, I mean, obviously not everybody's had anxiety. Like, and it can be hard for them to understand that, listen, this is something that still affects me to this day. And then I'm like, is this normal? Like, is it normal for me still to be going through as much as I'm going through at this point? But, you know, there's other things in life. And
well, they say postpartum lasts for like 7 years now. So.
Okay. All right. Well,
like
I'm right around that. With the second one.
Starts over.
Oh, and then there's the other one. Okay. Well, that the clock's still, you know, ticking on it. Then I guess that's I feel a little bit better about that then. Oh, good.
So when did you decide to start trying for George?
Yeah, George. Are we going right into that then? With George? Okay.
Unless you want to add anything else.
No. Great.
Because obviously Lucy was like 4 by the time you had George.
Yeah, Lucy was. So we had kind of been trying. Lucy is very intense. She's a very intense child. It was a lot. It was a lot for us. And I think a lot of it was the anxiety. And it was a lot of it was just so much. Wasn't expecting it. I mean, you have these like ideas in your head of like, oh, my child's going to do this and this and this. And like, it's like, you don't know what your child's going to be. You don't know who this person is going to be. Mm-hmm. Like they're their own person. Mm-hmm. And so that was very intense. And we were very good on just having Lucy for a long time, for her for 3+ years. We were very good on just like, we did not even attempt to try to have another one during that entire time. And that was great. And I loved it. And I don't regret anything like that, because it was really great just to have her and spend time with her and just have her. Yeah. And then Georgie, we kind of were like, okay, I think we're ready. I felt like we were kind of at a good place. Liz had just had Arthur. I think that was probably a big thing too, is because it was like,
fever.
Yes, 100%. And we were like obsessed with Arthur.
Lucy was so good.
Yes.
With Arthur. The video that she sent. Hi, I'm Lucy, and you're my baby Arthur.
Baby Alpha. Baby Alpha, and you're so cute. And like we were watching that the other day. I was so cute, Alpha. You're so cute. And like she was like his big sister. Like that was like we were there all the time, and like around him all the time, and we were like obsessed with him. Guys, cute, and like So he was, what was he, 6 weeks old, I think, and
St.
Patrick's Day. He was 6 weeks old because it was the first time you went out. It was the first time out ever, and I had just. Was it when I got home? I'm pretty sure it was when I got home, because I'm pretty sure I said to you while we were there on the side.
You said, I think
I might be pregnant. Yeah, because I haven't missed my period. I don't know. I haven't taken a test yet or something. And then I don't know.
The day of my missed period.
It was right around. I was pretty close. Yeah, around 6, maybe 5 weeks then. Yeah, and then I got home and then I took the test and I texted it to Liz and I was like sworn to secrecy, because I think you had done the same thing with one of yours. I knew very early on with with Arthur, I think, or Viv. I can't remember. I think it was Arthur. And then, yeah. And so then you had kept that for a while. I think you were the only one that knew for quite a while. And then it was Viv's baptism.
End of April.
Yeah. And then I came over and I was just like, hey, like I didn't want to like steal the show, because that was like Viv's time and everything, but I remember pulling you aside and being like, okay. It was Arthur's baptism. Right. It had to have been. Yeah.
Oh,
Viv
obviously
was born. Yeah.
I'm like getting my timeline.
Yes, me too. Me too. I remember pulling you aside and being like, oh, I'm pregnant. Which was crazy. Yeah. And then I was pregnant. It was like 4 months in your wedding. 4 months.
Yeah.
Lucy was
oh my God, yeah.
3-ish. Right. Almost 3.5. Yeah, almost 3.5.
Yeah. Like 5.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
what's weird is Arthur's baptism was like 2 years before we had Wes.
Oh wow. Like his baptism, and then
right I had like a time hop of like, here's Arthur's baptism day, and then 2 years later we're in the hospital having Wesley.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
So I just thought.
That is. It's very well connected. It's very connected. Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice. I was able to like experience this pregnancy with you guys, which was crazy. And it was because you forget that you weren't, there for like the whole thing with Lucy. And yeah, it was, again, I mean, had a great pregnancy. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like I was nauseous with George, but never threw up, but nauseous. I carried about the same, didn't gain much weight, felt pretty good, honestly, the whole time. I was on my anxiety medication for George. There was no way. I think we started to like try to wean it off in the beginning. And then it was just, nope, that's not an option for me, which was fine. And I trusted my doctor that I was going to be on it. And he had mentioned usually when you're on like an antidepressant or anxiety medication that there will be like a NICU nurse in the room just to make sure. And so I was okay with that. I trust my doctor and I trust his opinion. Yeah. And so I stayed on that. Felt great, really, through the whole thing. You guys threw me such a nice sprinkle. It was wonderful. I mean, that was just so sweet. Felt good. And then really, I mean, into my third, I felt great up until my third trimester. And then I started having a lot more anxiety. It got more intense. And so I upped my meds, like in my last trimester. And, I mean, I guess I just had to do what I had to do. As long as it was obviously my main thing was like, if it's safe for him. Oh, we found out too. We never waited. We always found out the sex. George, we did test with. That's who we tested with, which I don't really know why there wasn't much of a difference, but I just kind of wanted to know sooner, honestly.
I get it.
I just like to know.
Way to go, Liz.
I know.
Secret.
Oh my God. It's torture. It was torture. I had to know. Yeah, so boy, which was crazy because then I had a girl and then I had a boy, and which is insane that we all have because the statistics are just insane. Yeah. That would not usually be something that was possible. And the fact that all three of us have had a boy and a girl, like it's just, it's awesome. It's very cool. Yeah, so then I went in and at this point I think it was like a weekend. It was like a Friday. He was due on Saturday. Again, no progress. I was not dilated. I wasn't anything. So I never had that like water breaking moment, like outside of the hospital. No, I was induced both times. And he said, you want to do it Monday if you don't already have him? I'm like, yep, sounds good. So we kind of sat around. My parents took Lucy. She was right at 4 at the time. So she had just turned 4 in that September. And then George was born in November. And we waited around all day until they gave us a call, and it was midnight. And we went in, and this was much quicker. This was only about 7 hours. So we went in and they induced me, and then the peanut worked miracles. I mean, it was insane how fast it went after that. Ben did get,
He'll never be able to live.
the first one was something, but then the second one, the same thing. Right. You already know what's going. I mean, like, what, are you serious? And he's like, I just think it's like sympathy pains, and God love him. But like, I'm like, okay.
And like, Jerry and your mom were in this one.
They were. Yeah. So there was literally, you guys, I mean, there was like 15 people in the room for this one, because at this point I was like, you know what? We had the moment together. I was okay with it. It was a big teaching experience. So like the night nurses stayed on past their shift because I ended up having him at like, I think like 7:45 or something in the morning. They wanted to stay because they were with me all night, which I thought was really sweet. And then there was resident, my doctor, the new nurses on the new shift. There was a paramedic intern or whatever. So he stayed. There were like 3 other nursing students in the room. God. I'm not joking when I say that this was like, it was like everyone. Plus party. Our mother-in-law, my mom, and Ben. So everybody got there in time. And I did not push very long at all. It was very quick. The only difference with this one is that epidural again and everything. I could not feel the contractions at all. So it was I didn't like that. I wanted to know when I was going to push. They had to tell me. I didn't really like that. Like it was just a different feeling.
Yeah. Like a different.
I don't know what it was.
Or...
No, it was the same. I don't know if it was because I had gotten the epidural like with Lucy way earlier. You know what I mean? And because I was in labor for so long. Whereas with George, it was only like a 7-hour thing. So it was much quicker. And I never gave myself like extra dosages either because I wanted to feel it. So you would think that I would be whatever. Yeah, it was only a couple pushes. And I was like, they had me holding my legs at first, and that was getting nowhere at all whatsoever. So then I had one of the nurses say, like, why don't you hold down on the bars and bear down that way? And then once that happened, it was like literally 2 or 3 pushes, and then he was. So Yeah. And he was out. He was great. I mean, yeah, everything was great again. I mean, like we were so lucky. I mean, he was 8'4", about the same length. He was 22 and a half also. So he was a big boy too. And then everything was so much smoother. I mean, physically, it was so much smoother.
Yeah.
I felt so much better. You know what to expect. You're not like,
Exactly.
oh my God, like what's happening to me? Yeah, recovery was fine. I think I tore again, but not as extreme. And yeah, he was good. It was like I felt immediately better. It was easier to get out of bed. It was easier to, I mean, that's a big difference between 3 hours of pushing to compared to like a half an hour maybe at that.
Yeah.
So you just feel like kind of like, okay, I'm good to go. Anybody can come up, and they came up and saw the baby, and like we're just kind of like, yeah. I mean, the difference between the first one and the second one. The first one was like, I want her in the room with me every second, and the second one, I was like, no, he can go to the nursery. I'm like, she was like, what time? And I was like, oh, whatever. Literally had him from like 9 p.m. And she's like, well, what time do you want to bring him back in? And I was like, I knew at that point, because of the issues that I'd already had with breastfeeding, that I was formula feeding, like from the beginning. That was just a given. So I was like, oh, 6 a.m. Sounds good. Like, literally, he stayed all night. And Ben and I were like, this is great. Like, this is like, it was like more of, not a vacation, but like we took full advantage of everything.
Fair.
You don't have that as much guilt. I don't know. Like,
rest. Ew, they don't let us.
Not at all.
I don't know how people go to hospitals that don't have nurseries. I've heard about
baby
those.
friendly.
I didn't even know that was an option, and that would not be chosen ever.
No.
No. And it's not even like you're getting consistent sleep either, because they're coming in and constantly checking and everything. But it's like, listen, I would rather have that 2 hours uninterrupted than. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, either I can get some sleep and be restful for the next day and actually like enjoy
Correct.
bond with my baby, or you can come in every rest for the next 3 years or hell.
And so that's what I think is so crazy too about like I've had 2 children, and the differences in being a mother for both of them are so different, because the first one is like, gosh, the first one, and everything they're doing is just like magnified, like amazing and all this stuff. And then the second one, I feel like you kind of get to be, because again, with the anxiety and everything, I feel like that took away from a lot of like moments to where I couldn't like really clue in as much. I don't know, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But like with the second one, I felt like you just get 2 completely different moms. Like you get like, I felt very just kind of like more easygoing. You're just just completely different. You're not like staring at them forever, and you're just kind of like, oh, he's good. You just, oh my gosh, you just feel kind of like a wave of just like, okay, we're good. We're good.
Like, the baby's going to do what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Eat and breathe. And stay there and sleep and trust the baby. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming home was better. It was intense though with Lucy. Like I remember telling you when you were having like your second, like send that kid away. Yeah. So Lucy came home, my parents dropped her off like that night, and I was just like, nope. Oh I remember calling her the next day and being like, no, I can't do this. And it was like he was more over like Thanksgiving break kind of thing. So my mom was like already off from her school job. And so I'm just like, can you please take her for a couple more days? Like just to get us settled in. And we're so fortunate. I mean, I know there's not a lot of people that can do that. So I was so grateful to them for just taking just for a couple days, just so I can get kind of like settled in, and we can get like reacclimated to this whole, she's in the baby's face all the time and just very loving and wanting to be there. But it's also like a lot, but intense. Yeah.
Yeah. We had Arthur for the night. Like we had we had 2 nights in the hospital and 1 night. It was nice being
Yeah. It was a lot. As good as you felt with the second one, it's like, I'm like, okay, no, but like that's.
Yeah, then you're home and you still figure out feeding. Yeah, just because you're bottle feeding doesn't mean it's any easier.
No, I mean, you're still waking up and you're still doing all the things. And I don't even think I mentioned before that I am a stay-at-home mom. So I did not go back to work after I had Lucy. I stayed home. And So that was, I mean, Ben had to go back to work as the only person working and bringing money into our family. So I was doing all the feedings and all of that. So it was nice to have a little time just to kind of figure out our new normal.
Yeah.
So Georgie's now 3.5. Yeah. So, and I'm still home, which, yeah, it's a lot.
Did you feel like any of the anxiety kind of creeping back in?
Oh, yeah.
At that time?
Oh, yeah. But I mean, not as much because I was still on my medication and everything. Recently going through a medication switch because it's getting to be a lot again. So, yeah, I could feel it. I could feel it coming in, but nothing. I'm so grateful that I was on my medication for postpartum and even the increase in the last trimester because I needed it. And so, yeah, I felt like it was
any medication prior to Lucy.
I was on Lexapro. I was on medication for anxiety. Yes, before our wedding. Right. And before our wedding, I remember it was like a month or two before I had gotten off of medication because I was like, when I do get pregnant, I don't want to be on anything. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to just be on nothing. And so nothing with her, nothing with her at all. And that anxiety, I don't know if that was fully anxiety, to be honest with you. I feel like it was definitely nothing that I expected, like nothing that I experienced after. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it was a very stark difference.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't even know if that was really, and I remember one of my, like a therapist saying, it manifests itself in different ways though. Like it could have been very mild then and then really kicked up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it helped it. It helped for sure. It helped the first year. I mean, it was nothing compared to like the first.
Yeah. And you didn't know what it was, Lucy, but then with George, you could recognize it.
For sure.
That's a big, huge difference.
It is, definitely. Yeah. It's way less scary.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you have any advice for moms who struggle with postpartum anxiety?
Oh, yeah. I mean, don't be ashamed of it. There's nothing to feel. It doesn't make you even less of a mom. You can still do all the things. It's just something that it happens to you. Nothing you did. It's nothing that caused it. It's just sometimes it happens and it's okay. It's okay. The shame around it and the embarrassment of it and like, it's okay. And it's okay not to do all the things. Like, I mean, there's plenty of times where I cancel plans and there's certain things I can't do and that's okay. Like, it's not like you're taking anything away from them and you're not, and just seek help. Like, I mean, it's totally okay to, it's so necessary and do what you have to do to get yourself better. I mean, being a mom takes away, it takes away a lot of who you are because you're putting everything into your children, everything you got. And then you lose yourself in a lot of ways. And I mean, it's not to say that God, my kids are my life, but you do lose yourself a lot and you got to take care of yourself.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's
so fun.
Loved it. It's great. Yeah. I love what you guys are doing. It's amazing. I think it's really helpful for women everywhere, really.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion and found it insightful and beneficial. Remember, the Golden Hour Birth Podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you appreciate the content we bring you each week, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform or sharing the show with your friends and family. Your support helps us reach more people and continue creating valuable episodes. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, www.goldenhourbirthpodcast, or connect with us on social media. We value your feedback and want to make sure that we're delivering the content you want to hear. Before we sign off, we'd like to express our gratitude to our incredible guests who joined us today. We are honored that they trust us enough to be so open and vulnerable. We're grateful for their time and willingness to share their stories with us. If you're interested in taking the conversation further with us, join us on our Facebook group, The Golden Hour Birth Circle.
We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to tune in. Until then, stay golden and remember to take care of yourself. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. Bye! Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion and found it insightful and beneficial. Remember, the Golden Hour Birth Podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you appreciate the content we bring you each week, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform or sharing the show with your friends and family. Your support helps us reach more people and continue creating valuable episodes. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, www.goldenhourbirthpodcast, or connect with us on social media. We value your feedback and want to make sure that we're delivering the content you want to hear. Before we sign off, we'd like to express our gratitude to our incredible guests who joined us today. We are honored that they trust us enough to be so open and vulnerable. We're grateful for their time and willingness to share their stories with us. If you're interested in taking the conversation further with us, join us on our Facebook group, The Golden Hour Birth Circle. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to tune in. Until then, stay golden and remember to take care of yourself. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. Bye!